Good morning and welcome. The news this morning, this the 20th day of June 2024, is that the UGC has cancelled the NET examination, the examination that establishes the eligibility among applicants for teaching positions in the country. Already the integrity of Neet examination, NEET, National Eligibility and Entrance Test, conducted by National Testing Agency, NTA, is under serious clouds. Now, in the wake of that, the UGC, under instruction from the government, has cancelled the NET exam, NET, National Eligibility Test, based on the score of which teachers are appointed. Now, this is quite a depressing situation. The main excuse or pretext for centralizing these eligibility determining tests was to eliminate corruption and to ensure that the standard of testing is made uniform, and also to make the entrance determining process less cumbersome, less burdensome for the young people. The stated intentions are good, but look at the outcome. Young people are in deeper trouble than ever before. Now, I don't want to enter into the technicalities of conducting these eligibility as well as entrance tests. My concern is a general one, is a human one. There is the reality in this country that the integrity of people handling responsibilities in public of diverse kinds leaves a lot to be desired. The very idea that if eligibility and entrance tests are allowed to be conducted regionally or with institutions as the unit, or institutions are allowed to have their own eligibility determining process, is that then the integrity of these selection processes cannot be ensured. So, the argument based on favoring a national centralized testing exercise is distrust of the integrity of the people who would handle this work if it is decentralized. Now, I find a logical fallacy here. Whether the selection process, whether the eligibility determining process is conducted locally or at the state level or nationally, this work is handled by human beings. They are not handled by some aliens or by angels or archangels. The work is handled by the very human stock that is found from one end of the country to another. So, a simple logic, a little bit of common sense will tell us that if the integrity with which these processes are handled at the institution level, at the district level, at the state level, at the national level cannot be guaranteed, then the solution to the problem lies not in centralizing the testing process, but in addressing the fundamental issue, which is an ethical one. Now, without addressing the ethical issue that pertains to the very stock of our national character, the very essence of our national character, centralizing selection and admission processes will only result in centralizing corruption. all you achieve in the process is that you deny, apparently you deny, the opportunity to people locally to practice corruption and make a fast buck, and you keep the opportunities to practice corruption to a designated set of people. Of course, the fact remains that in this process, the network will spread, and those participate in this process of corruption, hidden or otherwise, will be spread across the country. Because you need local people to facilitate the process, even if the mechanism for enabling corrupt practices is created and put in place centrally. So ultimately you are back to square one. Previously there was corruption, now also there is corruption. And I for one cannot see what moral grounds have been gained in centralizing these processes. What has been achieved is that an air of suspicion has been cast over the integrity of people handling such sensitive and responsible work throughout the country. Of course, it can be argued that it was done based on solid evidence, and I will concede that argument right away. But that argument will not make me believe that if this work is handled centrally, it will be absolutely corruption free, because the people handling the centralized process also are prone to corruption. So therefore, now this is the pith of my argument. The issue at hand is not the mechanism for conducting eligibility and entrance tests. The real issue at stake is the moral stature, the moral fiber of the people who are handling such work. So ultimately this is not a technical issue, this is a moral issue. Unless and until the character and culture, the self-respect, the dignity and the sense of accountability of a people improve, there will be no remedy for this malady. It will go on. And here, I have to connect this to the realities at work or realities at play in the big picture, the national picture. Now, the fallacy that is being resorted to, the fallacy that's being institutionalized is this: that you can create a culture based on anti-values. For example, you create post-truth politics, that is to say, politics which is de-linked from the discipline of truth, politics of expediency, politics that has nothing to do with ethical standards, ethical norms, the ethical demand. And thereby, you actually denationalize truth. Denationalize truth. Truth is cast out of the fabric of our national life, as far as politics is concerned. Now, the fallacy here is the assumption that you can do that in the realm of politics and at the same time expect that this malady, this epidemic will not spread to the other aspects of our life. If untruth is desirable and legitimate in the realm of politics, why is it not legitimate in every other realm of life? So, it is simple common sense that what is initiated in one sphere of life will from there spread to all other spheres of life. That has already happened. So, therefore, the remedy to this malady that is now afflicting particularly the young people who are already at their wits' end on account of the abysmally low employment rate, the worst in half a century, their plight is becoming more and more desperate, hopeless. Young people are feeling harassed, taken for a ride, resentment is building among them, and understandably so. I want to argue that there is no quick fix solution for this. If there is a solution, and I believe there is a solution, it has to be a radical one. What is a radical solution? Solution that looks at or goes to the root of the issue. What is the root of this issue? The issue of the most reprehensible way of conducting the NEET exam or NET exam, Neet and Net exam. It is the bankruptcy in our character. We cannot be honest with the responsibilities of the work that we handle. We cannot place the national interest above our narrow personal interest. Rousseau, in his work titled Emile, E-M-I-L-E, analyzes the essence of corruption. He says when a situation finds himself in a situation where he is handling work or faces a challenge or handles an opportunity, there are two possibilities before him. One is to deal with that situation with an eye only to maximizing his personal benefit, ignoring the harmful consequences of the choice that he makes to the society, the country at large. And he says this is the immoral decision or the ethical decision, the unethical decision. The ethical decision is individuals in the same situation deals with it primarily, not exclusively though, primarily with an eye to what is in the larger interest of the country. And in the process, his own interest will be taken care of. Jesus formulates this idea in a different manner. He says, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you, will be given to you. That is to say, when you deal with any situation, your prime concern should be with the big picture, the kingdom of God and his righteousness, not your personal agenda, personal profit, personal gain. Once you do that, everything else will be taken care of. Then you create a just, fair, moral society where everybody's needs are taken care of. Whereas if you create a society based on exploitation, on untruth, on dishonesty, on prioritizing vested interests and seeking selfish personal interests, then the society becomes a moral jungle in which nobody in the ultimate analysis is safe. So there is tremendous practical wisdom in this. Unfortunately, in our public life today, we have shut our mind against such enduring wisdom, which is coming to us from different sources. Not long ago, it used to be said in India, let 1,000 windows open. That's what Gandhi said. Let 1,000 windows open. Let good ideas come from all sides. Today, we believe that we should shut our windows against the world, and we should only have one idea, one name, one leader, one country, one language, one GST, one. And look at the outcome. I think it's time for us to realize that the gulf is daily widening between the ideological political agenda to reshape the country in a particular manner and the agenda of ensuring and enriching the welfare of the people, which is supposed to be somehow taken care of in the process of pursuing this other agenda. How exactly the other will eventuate from the first agenda, nobody tells you. And there is no empirical evidence, there is no actual experiential evidence that it will happen. In fact, whatever evidence there exists proves the contrary. That is to say, the more this partisan interest is pushed, the more the general interests are jeopardized. It can only happen like that. So against this backdrop, I suggest that we realize that the fundamental task here is not to tinker with some systems or reform and fine-tune some structures, which we must do. I am not arguing against it. We must forever be alert against loopholes in the system, and we must also be keen and do all that we can to create better systems in place more foolproof, tamper-proof systems, but no matter what systems you put in place, they will all finally collapse if the human factor that's to operate these systems is lumpen, is dishonest, is morally suspect. And therefore, the ultimate solution to all these problems lies in the moral generation of the character of India. There is no alternative to this. So, in this context, I want to say that if you look at the political domain today, you can see two distinct approaches and two of them going in the opposite direction. On the one hand, there is an ideological bloc which has captured power, which tries to ram down the throat of India its agenda using brute physical force, relying on every anti-value that we used to think should be minimized, particularly banking heavily on propaganda, the use of force, threat, blackmail, etc., and resorting to any means to capture power as well as broaden the power base, and legitimizing the politics of hate and violence, resorting to the political strategy of divide and rule, spreading the virus of alienation in the body politic. This is one part or one block. The other block tries to affirm the fundamental values, and in this context, even incurring the risk of being misunderstood, let us say, that it is in this context that I finally decided to come out in the open and endorse Rahul Gandhi's Gandhian agenda of opening outlets of love in this world or in this culture of hatred. Mohabbat ki dukan. Now, he put it in the in a cultural idiom, the culture that exists today, which is commercial culture, and I am sure he did it, being a thinking person, he did it in order to appeal to the youth. Mohabbat ki dukan. Now, suppose he had used the word Mohabbat ki mandir, the temple of truth. It will not resonate with the youth of India. Unfortunately, that is how it is. That itself is an issue that needs to be addressed. And I wonder why the protagonists of the temple politics in India, do not say a single word about the decline of the value of the metaphor or symbol of temple. The idea of the temple, the metaphor of the temple, the symbolism of the temple does not resonate with the youth of India anymore. And in fact, if the results of the 2024 elections are taken seriously, it is absolutely clear that this idea of the temple does not resonate with the electorate in India in general, not just the youth. Even the people in their middle age or even elderly people are not taken up with the idea of the temple, because they are living in a consumerist, materialistic culture where nobody really cares for a temple, church, mosque, gurudwara, etc. Some people whose life is just limited to the premises of these places of worship would think that there is something great about it, but young people do not have any time. That they don't attend Sunday services where Christians are concerned. They don't go to temples. Hindus don't go to temples. Muslims are lamenting that their youth run away from their mosques, so on and so forth, which is a good thing really, not just for Muslims, but for all countries. I feel proud of the youth in the Christian community, that they are not particularly overawed by this church drama that's going on, because they've seen through it all, they have seen the hypocrisy and they're completely allergic to it. They say, we don't want to play this game. They have walked out on it. That's a good thing that they have done. Therefore, coming back to the pattern, I think Rahul Gandhi is on the right track, whether you like him or not. Whether he's going to be politically successful or not, I don't know, I don't care. But what I do care, and I care the whole world for it, is the fact that he has realized that this agenda of divisive politics, this entire gamut of post-truthless politics, post-truth politics, this culture of resorting to brutal and unconscionable methods in order to attain one's goals, completely unmindful of the harm it is causing to other people and to the country as a whole. He is realizing that that's a bus ride to nowhere, or if at all, that's a bus ride to absolute disaster. And it will spew up all kinds of problems, a great deal, 100 times worse than what you've already seen. Right now what we see is that this agenda has taken a toll on the welfare of the people, as they themselves realize and as they have spoken through the results of the recently concluded elections. But that's not going to be the end of the story. You will see a host of symptoms of a social disease erupting in the days ahead if this trend is not recognized for what it is, for the harmful phenomenon it is, and corrective measures are put in place. And this young man, Rahul Gandhi, knowingly or unknowingly, I don't know, I have not had the discussion to check on this with him, he is trying to put in place something else, and I think that's a radical solution. Now, let me say a little more about it and then I close. Now, Gandhi resorted to ahimsa to counter the oppression and the exploitation, the subjugation of the people of India. Why? Because he said, untruth is the essence of unfreedom. And he also believed that all values exist together. This is an amazing insight. If anyone is interested in the dynamics of morality in public life, this is a very crucial idea. You cannot take truth in itself as a vertical silo, or love, or justice, or compassion. All four fundamental values exist together. You compromise one, all other values are also compromised. For example, if in the interest of expediency you sort of hail and institutionalize post-truth politics, politics which sort of denationalizes truth, then in this very same process, whether you know it or not, you are also denationalizing love, justice and compassion. So, knowingly or unknowingly, or without wanting to do so perhaps, you will legitimize a culture of cruelty as against a culture of compassion, a culture of injustice and oppression. The moment you denationalize truth, you will do these things. You will denationalize justice, you will denationalize compassion, you will denationalize love. And that's a terrible thing. If you think of the consequences, now unfortunately, a certain section of the majority community will think that after all, yes, the consequences are terrible, but after all, its victims will not be us. It will be members of the minority community or members of the Dalit community, so on and so forth. We, the good people of India, the people who really matter to India, the valuable specimens of humanity, we are always safe. That's the greatest foolishness you can think of. If this unhealthy, diabolic scheme goes on and crosses the boundary, the limit, then it goes berserk, as it happened in Germany, and everybody will be caught in this net of death. That is the witness of history. It cannot be otherwise. So, it's not merely a question of conducting one examination or two examinations in a fair manner, in an honest manner. It's a question of saving this country from the very brink of disaster. If you cannot conduct an eligibility examination which is centralized in a satisfactory manner, the problem is not merely that you cannot handle that piece of work, it means that our ability as a nation to handle areas of work is declining very fast. This will have a consequence on every other area of work. And unfortunately, in moral issues, this infection spreads somewhat slowly, and by the time we realize that, like cancer, it has metastasized throughout the body politic, it will be too late. That is why those who love the country and those who feel responsible for the immediate future, they need to cry out that we are headed nowhere. We need to come back to the fundamental values, because human beings cannot survive as a society without these values. Values are those very forces that keep the society together, or in the Hindu context, dharma. Dharma means that which undergirds the social order, the system. And if those undergirding, this cementing, this holding together factors are weakened and abandoned, then the whole thing will fall apart. That is why dharma needs to be affirmed, and that's also why when adharma breaks out, God Himself intervenes in the form of certain incarnations, of which there have been 10, and maybe it's time for another one, and maybe it will happen, maybe it's happening, who knows. So please understand that instances like the huge corruption that's now coming to light in the context of the Neet examination and now the NET examination, etc., these are mere symptoms of a much larger epidemic that has already spread like death in the body politic of India. And we do ourselves no good by resorting to unethical methods to gain our small advantages in certain sectors by jeopardizing the health and wholeness of India as a whole. It is tantamount to the suicidal folly of cutting the very branches on which we sit. So there is a huge issue at hand, and those people who claim to be patriotic must at least sit up and take notice. They have to take a stand on this. If your love of the country, your professed love of the country, your patriotism is such that the very destruction of the soul of India doesn't matter to you, then neutral people like us would wonder, what is this patriotism all about? So every Indian must understand that the abominable way in which these national eligibility, entrance tests, etc. are being conducted are an indication, are the wake-up calls to make us realize that the national agenda is being imperiled, that the very foundations are cracking, and that very decisive, radical interventions are required. I rejoiced when my Prime Minister, Sri Narendra Damodar Das Modi, announced that he will not eat nor let anybody else eat. He declared very heroically that India will be a zone of zero tolerance for corruption. My soul rejoiced, and I began to really admire him. But I have to say that my hopes were completely belied in the last 9.5 years, 10 years. Corruption exists everywhere, and beyond that, corruption is also centralized. Now, I leave it to you to decide for yourself whether the central agencies like ED, etc., are being actually used to curtail and eliminate corruption, or to weaponize morality and so as to use it against those one dislikes. I just leave it to you. Has the national, the ED, have the ED investigations really effected in bringing about a change in attitude towards corruption anywhere? Has the ED, for all its massive nation-spread efforts, created the slightest difference for the better in the thinking of Indians regarding honesty in public life? Or, to ask an even more fundamental question, is the ED an instrument that can have anything whatsoever to do with rooting out corruption in this country? That is where the approach has to be positive. And once again, I want to underline the fact that more than anyone else, it is Rahul Gandhi who is on the right track. You may ridicule him, damn him by calling him Papu, etc. But here is a young man who realizes that the solution has to be radical. And if a society is perishing and is sinking into social ill health because of hatred, then the only solution is to spread the health, to spread the health and wholeness of love. I think that's the right approach. And whether you're a congressman or a BJP man or any other man, if you have the slightest common sense and a modicum of love for the country, you will endorse that agenda without the political baggage to it. It's a moral undertaking. It's a Gandhian agenda, and I endorse it as a Gandhian, not as a member of a minority community. I have stated this on umpteen occasions before that my thinking, my outlook on India has been substantially shaped by two people. One is Mahatma Gandhi and the other is Bhimrao Ambedkar. Unfortunately, Gandhi and Ambedkar have been counterpointed. My conviction is that this country will have a future, very bright future, if Gandhi and Ambedkar can be integrated. When I was the principal of St. Stephen's College, I did something which elicited a lot of adverse reaction, and that was, college had a Gandhi study circle. I renamed it Gandhi Ambedkar Study Circle. And believe you me, the upper caste members of the faculty were very upset. And they did everything possible to resist it, to damn it, but I held my ground. At least during my tenure as the principal of the college, I ensured that it was known as the Gandhi Ambedkar Study Circle. Because I believe that our solutions have to be constructive, and our solutions must match our problems, and the problems have to be understood in truth. And no reality can be understood if truth is cast out of it. So I say it again, if you cast out truth from politics, you'll also cast out truth from every aspect of life, then you create a moral jungle, and nobody will be better or safer because of that. It's a road to absolute disaster. Truth alone can save this country. That was Mahatma Gandhi's insight, and that's the insight that I live and die for. Nothing in the world that can convince me that untruth can be of the slightest benefit to the people of India. Therefore, let's hold on to this. But as I said, truth does not exist by itself. For truths to be really effective, there must be a culture of love, there must be commitment to justice, and there must be a mindset of compassion. 4 fundamental universal values, all of which are considered to be the attributes of God, by the way. Love, truth, justice, compassion. So if Narendra Modi really believes that he is an incarnation of God, or he is an ambassador of God or a messenger of God to redeem the Indian society, Indian nation, etc., then he has to commit himself to spreading a new culture, a robust, vital culture, the ingredients of which are 4: love, truth, justice, compassion. I find it really amusing and very hard to believe that a person who is apparently sent from God can be indifferent to these fundamental values which are universally believed to be the attributes of God. There's a glaring contradiction here. I'm sure Narendra Damodar Das Modi is aware of this, and he'll effect the corrective without any great delay, and I wish him all the best in that context. And I wish the new ministry which has assumed office all success for the sake of India. But please understand, India is Bapuji's land. If the freedom of this country was gained only through the power of truth, the future of India will have to depend on the power of truth. Nothing else, nothing less. Thank you. Goodbye. All the very best. Jai Hind.